Hello, everyone. I'm Ozone, and with me is Tance and Baines. Hello.
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 That is Tance and Baines that you hear, and this is the Drunkduck podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quackcast. Today we're going to be talking about the genre of cyberpunk and what it's about and some examples in case you don't know. But before we get into that, I have to bring up the featured comic. Featured comic was something that Kwai Dagakse gave us, and she's going to be telling us about the Book of Avo right now. Kwai, tell us about the Book of Avo.
Hello, this is Kwai Dagakse, and the feature I've selected for this week is the Books of Avo by Bones McKay, and it is rated M for mature. Juliet stares blankly at the neighboring table where Whiteheart, a golden-haired gentleman sporting a mysterious scar running down the left side of his face, sits surrounded by swarms of women. Her idle gaze returns to Dawn, this evening's dinner date, set up by her mother. Donnie is a classmate at the same university as Juliet and has spent the majority of the night talking about himself and seems to know detailed information about the dilapidated apartment Juliet manages. The topic of discussion suddenly switches to magic, immortals, and the mysterious tenant Juliet selected to occupy the apartment on Lenora, who may just be the last elf in the world. The art is fully colored in a comic book story format. The layout is a hybrid of narrative prose overlaying comic panels with traditional speech bubbles. The period clothes and title fonts are reminiscent to the Art Nouveau period of the 1890s. Find out whether Dawn will get a second date with Juliet and read The Books of Avo by Bones McKay, rated M.
That was Kwai Dagakse talking about the Book of Avo. Right. Now we're talking about the music this week. Garth Wallace has given us a theme to a comic called Return of Jake Sunrise. So this was a comic that Kwai featured, I think. I'm not sure. It could have been me, but it's probably Kwai. Very cool comic. A desolate red dirt desert. A wind whistles through and carries with it a torrent of sound and energy, flooding in like a sudden rainstorm, bringing with it life, color, and revitalization. The desert blooms. Take it away, Garth Wallace, with your theme to The Return of Jake Sunrise. Was The Return of Jake Sunrise by Garth Wallace, of course, his music. The comic itself is by Picture Books. It's rated E, so give it a look. Alright, now we're talking about Cyberpunk, guys. So do you like Cyberpunk? Baines, Towns, did you like it?
I think now that I know what it is a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed. Same.
So there you go. They love cyberpunk. They're, the very idea is to send them into shakes of rapture. It's incredible.
Yes, paroxysms of digital delight.
It's like they're being electrocuted. They're twitching and shaking. It's incredible. Yeah, cyberpunk. So what is cyberpunk? Interesting. It
Office
is
space?
Hey?
Office space?
Office space.
Was that cyberpunk?
Unfortunately not.
Was that a failed joke / reference? Yes, I think it was.
Very much.
Would you say that we could sort of categorize cyberpunk as a subgenre of science fiction?
Very much so. Yeah, a subgenre of sci-fi. True. It's very much. I think the whole thing was really. It sort of came together, it coalesced under William Gibson. Popularly, I mean, that's the guy who everyone sort of knows it by. Him sort of really coming up with the whole concept. I mean, he didn't come up with it, but he popularized certain things and really.
Let's say we canonized it. He made it into a thing that people were aware of.
So, for me, what I think of as early cyberpunk is Tron, that fantastic movie. Well, before we talk about that, okay, what is cyberpunk? Okay, cyberpunk is near future where computers are enhancing everything. I mean, cyberpunk. So what is cyberpunk? That's what I'm talking about. But what is cyber? Cyber is a name for technology. It's a name for computers. That's what we sort of refer to when we're talking about cyberpunk. We're talking about the cyber world. We're talking about our world enhanced by computers, and that's really what it comes down to. But cyberpunk takes things into a gritty nature. So we're talking about not only near future, but near future where that technology is in the hands of everybody, and that technology is in the hands of people on the street. And we're talking about, so William Gibson, when he sort of was really sort of writing about this, he was sort of thinking about, okay, so computers are a new thing, they're sort of enhancing our lives. What would happen when everybody has access to this computer technology and it starts to change the world? And that was his vision of it. And the people on the street, the fashion, the style at the time was punk. Mm-hmm. So we're talking like ripped leather jackets and spiky black hair and lots of piercings and all that kind of stuff. And that was the youth style at the time. It had started in the late 70s and it continued into the early 80s. So punk was the youth style, the youth fashion. So that's really where that comes from. And we had seen, and so he had been massively influenced by a couple of things that were around at that time, which was, of course, say, Bladerunner, which was a fantastic Ridley Scott film about robotic pretend humans, and it was like a gritty near future version of our world. And that film, more than anything, is influential on cyberpunk. It kind of even though William Gibson really kind of gave this thing form, that film kind of skips him and influences further on people who are doing the cyberpunk thing. So people still go back to Blade Runner. But then there's Tron, I said, which is earlier, shows people being zapping into the computer world, becoming computer programs and existing in the cyberspace world. So that is very formative on the whole cyberpunk thing. We've got Escape from New York, where it's not really a computer technology thing, but it is sort of like near future sci-fi, where society's kind of broken down and people that have that punk aesthetic that's on the street.
And there is some some technology that's a sort of a little
Yeah.
bit futuristic, right? With the
Yeah.
microbombs and all that stuff. Yeah.
Did anyone
the
have
whole-
the lens? Like, that was a really popular thing in the early Cyberpunk days. It was like a lens
Yeah.
on one eye.
Would you say, considering, I mean, androids that are replicants aside, that we are getting to that cyberpunk level in our technology and society, because we do have Google glasses or whatever they are called, and we do have access to technology that is insanely more powerful than what once upon a time NASA had to send a rocket to the moon.
Of course, we're solidly in the cyberpunk age now. That was sci-fi back in the early 80s. And now that is what we live, because William Gibson had envisioned that, like a near future. What would happen if computer technology is in the hands of everyone on the street? How would it change the world? And that is what we have now. So, you're right. Although it's not grim and dirty and icky. I mean, there is that, of course.
Not everywhere, but in some places.
Like, people who have nothing and live on the street, they have phones. So, yes, that is purely cyberpunk in the most gritty, real sense.
Yeah.
Everyone has access to it. So, yeah, we do. We live in the cyberpunk age. The only thing we don't have is one thing that became characterized by the whole cyberpunk thing was mechanical enhancements. So we have like people with missing limbs replaced by technology. So your missing arm is replaced by a mechanical arm. It gives you extra strength and stuff. We are, and some people do kind of have that, but it's incredibly expensive and very limited.
Yeah.
So,
but since it exists, eventually, I mean, give it like 10 years, even 20 years, and it will be like your phone.
Hopefully.
I hope so. I mean, if it's not, we have failed even more as a society.
So one of my favorite examples of cyberpunk, one of the things that is part of the genre, is Ghost in the Shell, of course. And that, again, envisages people who have transitioned, and they don't have just mechanical enhancements, but their whole body is now mechanical. And their humanness is a very small part. And so Masamune Shirow, who wrote it, his idea was that when basically technology is another form of evolution of us, so we transition into a technological form. And when do we become machines, or do we ever become machines? This is just another form of humanity. And that is incredibly interesting. People like to demean Masamune Shirow and say, "Oh, it's this guy who did the movie. He was the real one who was behind, the genius of Ghost in the Shell." No, it was Masamune Shirow. He came up with these. He'd been working on these cyberpunk ideas for decades in his earlier works like Tron Depot, Black Magic 66, Appleseed, and Ghost in the Shell was his crowning glory, and he really did come up with this idea. And the film is just a version of what he had created. And sure, he does sexy stuff now, but he created this idea and came up with this idea of human evolution, which is really taking cyberpunk all the way, into its like ultimate form. But the reason I bring this up specifically is you're talking about like mechanical enhancements and how we're getting to that. So one of the things in Ghost in the Shell is like, yeah, your whole body is mechanically enhanced, or maybe just an arm. But what happens when that technology is out of date? Like we have with phones, no longer being updated. So you've got a whole body, you've got your arm or your leg, or maybe your lungs or something like that are computer controlled. Now that business that created that has gone bust, and no one's around to repair that. no one's around to update it. Like with your old phones, your old computers, that technology is out of date. So you're buggered, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and that's what they tackle in that writing. So.
And even that is already happening. Just look what's happening with the Cybertruck now. That fiasco of a truck that has so many problems. Even like you have these electric cars that it's not the electric cars, it's just that the cars have so much computer in them these days that if they don't get updated, if they are vulnerable to remote attacks, they are vulnerable to jamming and locking you in and stuff like that, especially if they're Teslas.
Crash into things because they misidentify a truck in front of them and ram straight into it.
So imagine if you have this car that is basically a computer now, and it's not analog, and you are basically buggered, as you said, if it cannot have updates, if it cannot have proper maintenance, like software maintenance, if it cannot troubleshoot as it should, and nobody is fixing bugs and stuff like that.
Well, that already happened with way back, like decades ago. That already happened with one of the first cars to really do that, which was this amazing multi-million-dollar sports car, the McLaren sports car, which was so incredible for the day. Like I think it cost $2 or $3 million, had gold-plated engine bay, because that was the only thing that would conduct the heat away fast enough. And of course, that's bullshit. They just did it because it was premium. It's like a multi-million-dollar car. Gold is not a great conductor for that. But yeah, this car had a computer-controlled diagnostic, but because the technology wasn't around widely in the day, so it had to have its own inbuilt modem and all this kind of stuff that would connect to the internet in a special way and transmit the knowledge, the information about its working functionality. And the technology surpassed that, so that now that modem in these multi-million-dollar cars that were sold in the late 80s or like early 90s or whatever, it doesn't work anymore. And these cars, the diagnostics ridiculous, so none of that works. So people paid all this money for these cars, and that doesn't do anything. It's ridiculous. That's a big joke, You pay $3 million for a car and it's got all this technology that's massively out of date and it's useless.
And imagine, like, they have this. I always forget the term that they have, for devices that they are set to basically expire after like a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years.
Like planned obsolescence.
Exactly. That's the one. Thank you, Baines. Imagine if they do that to cars and you are forced to change your car every 2 years or 3 years.
Oh man,
that's what they'd like to do to you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
I have had my car for 20 years. Like, I bought it literally in the year 2000, and I still have it, and it's still going because it's analog. It's basically, a piston and grime and bolt machine that you just keep maintaining, and then that's how it keeps going.
Yeah.
If you are not an idiot with your car and you pay some modicum of attention to it, it will keep going. That's not going to fly with computer cars.
No, they're too complicated. There's more stuff to wear out, basically.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the same with technology in general. It's it's very
and that's why I'm a bit somewhat of a heathen, a Luddite on that. I really don't want, not that I can afford it right now, but even if I could, I would not feel very comfortable switching from my analog car to a computer one.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Well,
But
okay,
yeah,
so this
I will have it eventually. So
this brings us to an interesting thing. So a lot of the cyberpunk stuff, like I mentioned
Mm.
before, was the gritty and grimy technology of the street, but the genres evolve. So it started out as, the aesthetic being the main thing, but then it became, more about the physical enhancements and even more about the technology in the street. And so it became more about, so these people who are in the gritty and griminess, they specialize in modifying technology. So that kind of gets around the idea of the obsolescence, because these people are fixing stuff and jury-rigging it to work and turning it into new stuff. And that's what the genre had started to become. The other thing about the genre as well is, that I haven't mentioned so far, was the virtual stuff. So that started to become a big thing. And what I mean by that is, I can't remember the name of it basically, but so when you've got like the whole virtual reality goggles or like Google Lens or something like that. So the idea is that when you're looking at something, so you're looking at like a shop front while you're walking along the street, this little digital thing will come up in your goggles or your cyber eyes or whatever like that, and so say tell you what that place is. Or someone walks up to you and this little like notification will tell you who that person is, or when their birthday is or something like that. Or if you want to find where to go, like train station down the road, you'll get like a little notification in your eye and it will like point you towards the thing. So that's where we're going to, this kind of virtual world kind of stuff in Cyberpunk. So, and then the bigger version of that will be like what you're seeing is kind of all enhanced by this technology. So where people are trying to do that with something like the new Apple virtual reality stuff, and Meta, which is the Facebook one. So yeah, like you would see people completely dressed up in fancy outfits and all this kind of stuff that are basically like almost like avatars, but it coats the real person. But that's what you're seeing because the goggles kind of enhance, reality. Tance, you've got some more to bring up, more examples. Tell us.
I think she has some barking dogs, so she muted herself.
But go on, Baines.
She was mentioning in the chat Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and I think it's Wesley Snipes and Sandra Bullock. And he's frozen. He's a cop, frozen, cryogenically frozen. Wesley Snipes is a criminal, his adversary, cryogenically frozen. And they come out in the future where there's a culture has changed a lot. And I don't remember the movie super clearly, but there's a lot of technology that people use for everyday interactions. And there's like a quote-unquote sex scene, I remember, with him and Sandra Bullock. It's weird.
They wear these helmets that
yes.
have this virtual sex situation going on because they don't actually have physical sex, or at least, I don't know, something like that.
Very much inspired by Barbarella, I think, if you've ever seen that.
And they do have this underclass or like really punk style people that are also like the resistance to this new regime.
Dennis Leary in charge.
1984 style regime. And they have this whole jury rigging thing that they steal stuff from the surface and then they combine it into different things. And so they do have both that. They have the virtual technology, they have the enhancements, and they also have the jury rigging
and the visual aspect as well.
And they also have, which I think also is an element not only necessarily cyberpunk, but science fiction. You have like this futuristic dictatorial government that controls your thinking, controls your everyday thing actions and super closely monitors you, through technology. So there's also that.
Actually, now you're talking about that, like 1984. Wasn't there a movie called Class of '84?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen that.
So that Cyberpunk, it really is. So there's the schools are now taken over by punks, and people are being killed and all like stabbed and all this kind of stuff because everyone's punks. Oh my god! But as a way to combat this, the teachers are robots and they kill everybody. Oh my god!
Oh no! Oh, no.
It's amazing. So that predates. No, it does predate Terminator. I don't know. Maybe it's in the same thing as Terminator, but yeah, it's there. You go.
I think it predates Terminator. It must be early '80s. It was Michael J. Fox was in it actually in a small role.
Yeah, it sounds like early 80s stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's very violent, very brutal, very, very violent. But yeah, it was yeah, there you go. That is very cyberpunk in its way, even though people wouldn't have thought of that as cyberpunk. It really is.
Right.
Early cyberpunk. Oh my god. Before the more advanced ideas sort of came along. Like one of the really kind of early films that really was cyberpunk, I think, was Johnny Mnemonic. Because even though we talk about the other ones that are much earlier, this was the one that really came along and tried to be cyberpunk. And I think it was probably, very, very Willian Gibson inspired.
Yeah.
Terrible acting by Keanu.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a very interesting premise. And you could say that his brain was fried enough that he had no capacity to emote anymore.
Yes.
How about, would you say...
just before we get into another one, Dolph Lundgren, excellent in that movie as the weird priest, techno priest guy. God. So yeah, go on, Tance, right?
Would you say that Minority Report is cyberpunk?
I was thinking Minority Report as well.
Yeah, a more kind
My
of cleaned
thought
up
was
version.
street people, normal people are not using the technology. Oh, maybe I'm wrong about that. Because he goes to that kind of backyard mechanic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do use the technology. It's just not sanctioned.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Cleaned up version, but yeah. Another Keanu one was some film. I can't remember the damn title. It was a sort of an animated version, an animated sort of thing, semi-animated.
Oh my God!
Got a weird title. I know the one you mean though.
Like Sliders or something.
Something with a scanner.
Scanners. Scanner Darkly.
No.
Okay, yeah, that's the one.
None of us have seen it, so.
No.
I just thought that looks wanky. I'm not going to watch it.
It had that rotoscoping style of animation, which is, maybe it works. I don't know. I haven't seen it. How about RoboCop?
I saw Waking Life, and I thought, this is the only one of these, so I need to see. I don't need to see any others. RoboCop definitely is a kind of a cyberpunk thing, I would say. It's near future.
How about
computer control
Judge
stuff?
Dredd?
Yep. I reckon Judge Dredd is just in there because Judge Dredd kind of goes into a more kind of operatic, weird sci-fi. But yeah, I think it does have that in its roots. It really does. And of course, it's I think of it as the mirror Demolition Man.
Yeah.
So here's one that I think is not cyberpunk. So I'd be interested if you say it is or why it's not. Mad Max.
That's Diesel Punk.
That's Diesel
Punk. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, Diesel.
So Vin Diesel is the star. Is that right?
So the whole thing there is that Diesel Punk really takes its thing from steampunk. In that, like in steampunk, it's steam STEM technology or Victorian era, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Is the power system, and then, but they have high technology because of that. Without computer stuff, it's just steam based. And diesel punk goes the other way. So we have diesel fuel, like petrol, or mainly diesel fuel, it's a different thing, is the power source that drives society, and everything goes back to mechanical stuff. And fuel is the where all technology comes from.
Yeah.
Right.
And both of these have a big element of fantasy, in the sense that it's not like near future and stuff. It's a different version of society that has evolved technology that way, in a sense.
Yeah.
Yes. So we say, like, okay, so steampunk is like late 19th century. That's where it sort of starts and takes its aesthetic from. You can make it earlier, but usually it's late 19th century. And diesel punk, we're talking about from the 1920s till the 1980s, pretty much. So that's with... And post-apocalyptic stuff does sort of fall into diesel punk. So Mad Max is, there. And it's a whole lot of other things that are post-apocalyptic that go into.
And Waterworld as well was diesel punk, I think. In that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. That's Mad Max on the ocean.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other stuff like DEFCON 4, which is a Canadian thing, I think. So there you go, babes. All Canadian connections. A lot of different things in that genre. Oh my god, so many. But this isn't the Diesel podcast.
No, that's next time. No, hopefully not.
That will be ruled by Pinky TA, which is the best diesel punk thing ever made.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Pinky TA, diesel punk. I gotcha. What about Android Blues, the comic on the duck?
I would say that takes us beyond that. We're no longer in the gritty kind of near futurism. We are in proper futurism. So maybe cyberpunk roots or influences, but sci-fi, cyber sci-fi. Yeah, it just goes too far. It's beautiful. I love the comic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it is cyberpunk. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm totally open to that. I'm not the judge. Like, this is cyberpunk. That's not cyberpunk. This is my degree.
And maybe there's a blend, like genres blend a bit. But I think, like when you say Mad Max is not cyberpunk, I definitely can see that. Like, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're probably right. The Android Blues probably is. There you go. Change my stance on that right away. James is correct.
Cyberpunk is it kind of the sister of urban fantasy?
Yeah.
Ew. Don't bring that up in this cast. Yuck.
No?
Urban fantasy has been abused, but it can be really, really good if you know what you're doing. I stand by that, even though I have.
So yes, urban fantasy has been abused, but it you're saying it can be good, Tans.
Yeah, but it is it's a tough thing to you have to know what you're doing, in my opinion, because urban fantasy means that you have to. It takes a lot more work than people think. They think that it is easier because you can take, the current world and just drop some fantasy elements in it and be done with it and have your story. But that is not how you do urban fantasy. And this is why I have never done it, because I'm not insane. In order to do urban fantasy, you have to reconstruct this world to accommodate the fantasy elements you want to accommodate and structure, basic history elements and all of that around that. And
it changes everything massively.
Yeah, you have to really sit down and think, okay, I'm going to need to have two world wars with magic involved,
Right.
and the different
I mean,
races, and all of that.
There are other ways to do it that people have done very cleverly, like in the early days of urban fantasy. So something happens in the world and like magic gets reborn into the world.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
a good way. That way
Yeah,
you don't have to
that's it.
restructure all of history.
Yeah, but usually they don't do that. They want to have their cake and eat it too. Like, yeah, it has always existed, and yes, this is our history. That it's still, the non-magic history. So you cannot do that. You have to consider, okay, if there was fantasy and races in the Nazis, who would they send to the concentration camps? Not just other humans. You would have to decide who was the Nazis in fantasy, and who were the affected races, blah blah blah, so on and so forth.
Oh,
So
there's a lot of bad examples.
Yeah, because and you have to avoid, coding for current problems in ways that are stupid if you have fantasy races and stuff.
And we're talking about Bright here, which was a really bad Bill Smith film.
But if you do the work, you can create a world that is hauntingly real and still fantasy, like something like the Man in the High Castle, but with magic. Yeah, so
and you can even take it into cyberpunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Urban fantasy, which has been done most famously in a little role-play game that was created, I think, in the late 80s or early 90s. And what was it called? Famous bloody thing. It was very much cyberpunk. I can't remember what it was bloody called. But yeah, this role-play stuff was very, very formative. Could it have been just called Cyberpunk? I don't think so. But yeah, that was bloody hell. But they had elves and fairies and orcs, all that kind of stuff in it. So yeah, that has been done. As far back as the very idea of like cyberpunk, the concept of it. This roleplay thing, and damn it, I'm gonna have to find its name. Cyberpunk, and well, of course, like there's this video game that was released like a couple of years ago called Cyberpunk 2027 or something. I don't know, 2047. I don't know. That was sort of, for a lot of people, that would be the first time they heard of cyberpunk, because it's sort of been the genre wasn't as popular anymore, and that suddenly brought it all to the fore. And there was an anime named after it, based on the computer game, and people were talking about doing a movie, and it was a bit dumb because it was called Cyberpunk, which it's like making a TV show or a game called Urban Fantasy, right?
Right.
Or just fantasy, like, for God's sake, guys. But yeah. So, I'm going to have to look this up. Okay, so Cyberpunk roleplay game. Surprised you guys don't know it.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it.
Okay, and I'm not finding anything online, of course. It's too generic.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2020, that was the name of the computer game. But yeah, oh my god, tabletop cyberpunk. Don't know it. Ooh, okay, my brain is kind of thinking about it. Alright, I will look in the Wikipedia article. Cyberpunk role-playing games. So that mentions Bubblegum Crisis, which is a fantastic anime about people called boomers, funnily enough. So they were using boomers as a term, and that was before these idiots started using it to refer to baby boomers. And so boomers were very much like androids, basically androids like in Bladerunner, and they were designed to help people like to help society function. So they would be like servants or, you know, courtesans or whatever, and they'd be like fixing stuff or, you know, building roads or working as prostitutes or whatever. And sometimes things would go wrong with them and they'd mutate and they'd start killing everyone. And you had this group of elite police officers who were all women on these motorbikes with these transforming suits that would become part of their motorbikes, and they would go and you know, fight the boomers, who were these with the androids who were gone insane, gone psychotic, and started killing everyone. And it was really cool. So yeah.
Now that you mentioned AI, the movie AI, which is I think by Spielberg, basically, that could be cyberpunk, I guess.
Yeah, so AI is about it sort of references Pinocchio, and it's what if the creation of man, as in Pinocchio was an artificial creation in the original story, who came alive. What if that replaces humankind? And that's all that's left. So humanity is gone. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that have written about that kind of idea. Charles Schloss is someone, I think that's his name, who does a lot of stories about that, like post-humanity. And they sort of get into that in Blade Runner. So the idea is, yeah, but what if Deckard's really an android? I mean, that's... People think, oh my god, that blows my mind. What if Deckard's really an android? And that's just dumb to me. Like, that is just
me
so
too. I don't like that theory at all.
What
Me too.
it takes away the drama and the worry. Like, humanity versus these machines. And like, oh, if he's a machine, then who the hell cares?
Exactly.
Wow. And the idea
is
like...
the sequel did nix that, I guess.
Yeah, did it?
Yeah, because spoiler alert, he's still around.
Yeah, true. I think the idea is like, what if our memories are false? What if everything that we think is real isn't real? That we're just a machine after all, like the thing we're hunting.
That's a fine theme, but I don't like it for Blade Runner.
Yeah, it wasn't as interesting as the idea of these poor impermanent humans, which was really exemplified by Rocco Hewer's character and his Tears in the Rain speech, which was magnificent.
Oh yeah.
All these memories that I've experienced, gone like tears in the rain. And oh my god, that was just...
And all of that, I think that is a streak of a range of movies that come from this scientific conundrum of whether, like, our brain interprets things, and that's our reality. So if, like, we have no real quote unquote objective quote unquote way of knowing whether what we perceive is actually correct and actually real, because the brain can be fooled, blah blah blah, all of that. And we could be basically a brain in a box a la Matrix and not know that we are that, because it's really all that.
All a simulation.
Yeah. But in my opinion, I mean, I could never really engage with that as a scientist or as a consumer of stories, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it becomes irrelevant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because reality you experience is the reality you experience. Doesn't matter if it's real or not.
What is real and what is the significant part is not whether, oh, I'm touching wood. Is it really wood? Who cares? It is wood for you, and it will remain wood for you until you die. So that's all right. And the thing is, it's your choices, who you become as a person, and your emotions and your thoughts. And that's and these are real because this is what your brain creates. So why care? Why worry about the rest? I could never connect with that ever. So
same. It just seems to be too irrelevant to even engage with. You're right. Shadowrun was the role-playing game that did Cyberpunk and Urban Fantasy. 1989. That's how old that is.
Wow, never heard of it.
That was massive. Like, I've never played it, but I had friends who did, and they told me all about it. And yeah, so ghosts, ghouls, vampires, orcs, elves, and urban fantasy. Before that was popular. So there you go.
that's amazing. I mean, the 80s was really a hotbed of ideas and concepts that then grew into the next decades. So, I mean,
and it's funny that most people will know Cyberpunk from that bloody video game, Cyberpunk 2020, and that's just way down the line of the whole Cyberpunk influence. It's a lot of the influences in that computer game, which I was able to play a bit of because a friend showed me, and I've seen the anime that was based on the game. Is so derivative. Everything about it is massively derivative of all the stuff that's come before. So yeah, it's worth exploring its influences and not treating that as the representative of the genre. She shouldn't do.
Yeah. So would you put Ghost in the Shell as representative? That would be one you'd recommend for people to.
Yeah.
I think everybody's seen it already. I just haven't.
I would think that it would. Oh, sorry, Bones. What are you saying?
I was just asking if Terrence has seen Ghost in the Shell. No.
Okay. If you can watch the anime. Don't watch the movie with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah,
I would always choose the anime for a live adaptation. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, would you say Alita Battle Angel is Cyberpunk?
Yeah, that came out of this early 90s, late 80s boom in anime cyberpunk, because that was a real kind of thing back in the 90s. They had Alita Battle Angel, who was this robotic woman in this kind of weird post-apocalyptic world. Fantastic. They had AD Police, which was police who had psychokinetic powers, and they had robotic enhancements and stuff like that. Incredibly bloody and violent, 90s anime was. What else? There was the Bubblegum Crisis, of course. That was another one that's related to AD Police. Ghost in the Shell. Akira, which was a incredibly influential, fantastic piece of work.
And incredibly gory and violent as well.
Yeah, and there's many more. That was popular. The cyberpunk genre in anime really died down. There's almost nothing these days.
Yeah. I think it had, and I may be totally wrong, this is my impression, that it started with the cyberpunk, then went into the whole mecha thing where everything was mecha, big mecha, composite mecha, mecha with girls, mecha without girls, all that. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of tapered off into, other things.
I mean, the mecha stuff was always around, but kind of what was there, the mecha became the more important thing, because the mecha was really a big thing in the early 80s with Gundam and Macross and Speeder and a lot of stuff.
And what was the anime that had the guys that created this big mecha with their different
Voltron.
Voltron, yeah, they made the V. Yeah, so that's Voltron.
Yeah, there was a lot of those, the joining together robots, which of course
Yeah.
came, evolved into things like what was that? That bloody thing, Zoids, or no, what was it? Who knows? This stupid live action American thing that was created based on Japanese live action TV shows, but they put American teenagers in there.
What the come on, how can I forget this? The with the Decepticons and the whatever.
It wasn't Transformers, no.
Not Transformers, okay, but Transformers was in that genre.
Yeah, mecha-based stuff, yeah. But yeah, but we're not talking about the mecha stuff. But yeah, Cyberpunk maybe devolved into back into mecha. But yeah, it was good when Cyberpunk versus mecha. So in mecha, you're dealing with humans climbing into machines. Whereas Cyberpunk is more where the humans become machines, where we kind of blend in. The cyber technology becomes part of us, and like enhancements is a popular thing. You have the mechanical arm, like I mentioned before, and very much was the whole lens kind of stuff. So you have some sort of lens, which is a really popular thing. Like we had the influence in Star Trek was of course the Borg, which were their cyberpunk characters,
right?
So that became a major freaking thing in Star Trek. But Cyberpunk wasn't just like a visual thing. I mean, I can't mention many comics with it in because I don't know many, but yeah, there's of course the Ghost in the Shell comic. There was music that was influenced by it. Not David Bowie, who was that? Billy Idol. Billy Idol appeared on TV dressed as a cyberpunk, like in all white gear. He had this lens, he had this fantastic stuff. He did a film clip, like a music video, where he was dressed as a cyberpunk character. See, that was massively influential, and that was really cool, but he quickly did away with that look. But that was quite interesting because he was one of he was like a breakout star of punk in the late 70s. Like he was one of the punks that actually went into the big time and brought it through into the 80s and kept that look. When Sex Pistols and all the other punks were dead in the water, they were finished. Billy Idol was still doing that into the 80s. And then, into the 90s, he has the cyberpunk look. So, my God, that is a beautiful sort of, continuation of that, isn't it?
Right.
That star who is part of the imagery. My God, he's actually taking on the cyberpunk imagery in order to stay current and keep that going. That's cool.
To bring it to webcomics, would you make, if you were to make a cyberpunk webcomic, what would you like to do?
I think you'd go classic. You'd have someone with a lens. That would be an important thing. Some kind of mechanical enhancements, like I don't know, a leg or an arm or something like that. But I would go very much onto the thing that is more popular now, which is the computer enhanced world, cyber enhanced world. So you have the lens you've got over your face is like enhancing your reality, because that is a popular thing in cyberpunk now, but it's also quite an interesting thing. So it's almost like you're giving yourself a kind of technological magic in that, like, you can change the way you look to other people by hacking what they see.
Whoa.
You've got that kind of aspect.
Okay. Oh, that's horror stuff, nightmare.
And you're almost doing magic on them by you can hack their bodies and making them move and all this kind of stuff. So there's all this.
Oh wow!
And they could do it to you, and it's that, and so you're avoiding the whole magical kind of stuff and the problems involved in that. Coming out with how does magic work, and you're using technology in order to do that, that's really cool. So I think that's what I'd do if I was doing Cyberpunk. But I wouldn't go for the traditional like early 80s punk look. I'd go for something more modern and make people more kind of sleek and technological. Just because that's fun, and like the neon stuff. Like what in fashion now, at the moment they're calling it Y2K. So that is like, which is like early 2000s. But you have like people with like their space bun hair and their dyed colored hair, neon glowing bands and all this kind of stuff. It's basically club wear. Yeah, but they're trying to create a look from that early 2000s that never existed. That's what I'd go for, definitely. Y2K looks and some enhancements and technologically based magic. What about you guys?
I'm kind of working on something. It's still in early stages, but it's about I don't know if it would qualify as cyberpunk, but it's about robots existing among us, and I don't know if it's used by everyone in jury rig, so I don't know if it would fit into cyberpunk. It'd probably end up being like a comedy. That's what I like to do. But, it'd be something to do with robots intermingling with humans. Having feelings. How about you?
I would make a medical drama. Well, not medical drama, but like a medical horror story. And I would have this doctor and his or her tech assistant. I would have like this nowadays, in the cyberpunk world, the doctors are always paired with a tech assistant because they, do enhancements in people and they can cure things that now are incurable through technology, paralysis stuff, all of that. And even have these little mini but epic battles with nanotechnology, killing, like virtually, actually killing cancer cells in a patient's body and all of that. So I would make that an actual battle. Like you have to go in with your headgear and all of that, and actually direct your nanobots to kill the cells and all of that, and show, quote unquote, the white blood cells what to kill, all of that. However, I would also make it that this is gate kept, and working class and underclass people do not have access to all of that, and so this doctor has to sort of find a way, like Prometheus, to give this access to these people while also not being, cut off from all the technological stuff that he or she needs to do what they do. And I would sort of have like this chase cat and mouse game between, big corporations chasing down this doctor that is ruining their business model, because he is making, or she is making these easy one, like disposable kits where people can use to actually heal themselves and stuff like that. So I would do something like that.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Huh?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Especially the big corporation stuff against the little guy. That's a very cyberpunk kind of thing.
Yeah, and and he would have like this back alley clinic that is very secret, because technically he or she, again, I don't know the gender of the doctor, would not be allowed to have that sort of thing, but they do have this sort of thing, and they have you know, all the people that need them find them, and they get treated in ways that they wouldn't actually be able to be treated. And you know, the corporations really don't like that because their business model is affected or something like that. I mean, this would be my basic premise. So
Excellent. Well, I have to mention before we finish up, the famous William Gibson novel is Neuromancer. So there we are. I have to mention that. That's very formative to the genre. So yeah, you have a big corporation and all that kind of stuff. So, and SnowCrash by Neal Stephenson is another very formative novel on the genre. Neal Stephenson. So there we are. All right. Thanks very much for being part of Quackcast number 708.
thank you so much. It was amazing.
Yeah, learned a lot. You guys are really cool. You had some great ideas about the whole cyberpunk stuff.
Hey.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love you all.